from 200 million to 600 million, 211 to 612 to be exact, in 2 years. And I know this is going to be shocking for everyone, especially Isaac and I have been friends now for nearly 3 years. Oh my goodness. From 9 agents to 60 agents in that same time frame. Ta-da! Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege, whether you're watching or listening, to bring my good friend, Isacc Guzman. Isaac, welcome, brother. Thanks for taking time with me today.
I'm so glad to be here, man. I'm honored.
Well, let's just dig right in, because I want to honor your time and then honor what people come here for. Let's go right before I met you, right before you came to the Beer Home team. Talk to us about your role. Talk to us about what you were accomplishing at that point in time. What was the work you were doing, and what were you delivering as a result at that point in time? What did your day in life look like?
You're talking about my previous role prior to Beer Home team. Okay,
yes,
so
yes.
I was helping run a market center, a Keller Williams market center. That's a fancy Keller Williams term for office.
Right.
It's for a franchise. And I had been there 3 years. We took that market center up to 1.37 billion in sales. We had about 450 agents, give or take, by the end of 2018. And what I was doing day to day was recruiting. So my whole thing was, I started as just kind of a junior recruiter guy, making some calls, booking some appointments, sitting in on them, learning. And I actually had the privilege of sitting next to the guy who had helped build a lot of the office every single day. So,
and when you say build, had recruited before, was now in a sales management role, or was riding alongside you with recruiting as their focus?
Riding
well, this ties back in. I want people to see this trajectory of what you moved to.
Yeah. So he was doing all the recruiting. I was learning.
Okay. Yeah. All right, good.
So I was an agent, and he pulled me in and said, "Hey, I think you have something going on where you could do more than that." And so when you're done making your cold calls every day, why don't you come in and help me book recruiting appointments?
Stop right there. Let's stop right there, because I want people to, because this is such a critical role. As you know, we did the sales manager manifesto, and I mean, and then you've got this coaching forum going for a year. I mean, you see, this is an important spot. So I really want to have people unpack this. What do you think, knowing what you know now, looking at you, but now having an opportunity to coach other sales managers, what do you think he saw, sales managers and recruiters? What do you think he saw in you that made him recognize you could recruit agents?
That I was willing to make the calls and I was consistent. I think that's it.
That magic.
I was consistent. I just made calls. It actually happened because he'd see me every day, and he's like, I see you in the morning, and then you disappear for several hours, and then I see you again at the training. What are you doing? And I was like, making calls. And we did the math, actually, the day before he pulled me aside, actually the morning before he pulled me aside. Right. We did the math. I had booked my first listing appointment, and we did the math. And he's like, "I've been seeing you. How long have you been doing it? What are your dials, whatever?" And he goes, "Okay, so it took you between 3,000 and 4,000 calls to get your first appointment. Is that right?" And I was like, "Yeah, it sounds right." And he was like, "Here's what I know. Nobody else in this room is doing that." And he called it out in a team meeting. And then later that day, he hit me with, "Hey, do your real estate thing, but I feel like you can do more. Why don't you come in and help me do some recruiting appointments?" And John, I had the best training program of all time. I walked in, he was on the phone. He turned his laptop around, muted himself, and said, "That's my recruiting CRM. Call through it and make some appointments. There's probably notes in there." And that was my training program. And I booked 4 appointments that day. And the rest is history, right? He's from there, I started sitting alongside him in the actual appointments, learning side by side from him, not this way, that way, listening to my calls, right? And after that, he just said, "Look, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to help grow the market center in these various other ways, opening up escrow companies and all these other things. You just handle that." And so I built a recruiting team underneath me. I had 2 other people making calls and setting appointments. And by the time I left in 2018, I just kind of let them run it, and they kept going with the recruiting side of it.
So, what's so interesting, there's no accidents. Dan and I were talking this morning as I was driving back from the gym here in Utah. And, we were talking about recruiting and recruiting calls. if you were to look back at it, we all know that scripts and language patterns and objection handlers, all those things are important. But if you look at it, do you think it was what you were saying on the phone? If you only pick one, what I was saying on the phone, or I didn't give up too early on the phone call. If you were to look back at that time and then fast forward to your career, and your resume of accomplishments in recruiting, if you could weight one more than the other, which one would you weight more?
Oh, it's absolutely a commitment and sticking to it. And I'll be real, it took a while for it to click for me that I was doing the same job that I had been before when I was making cold calls to sellers.
There you go. There you go. That one. When did that switch? When you just go, oh my goodness, this is the same. How long did it take you?
I actually went to a training called, I forget what it was called, but it was all about taking listings. Okay. And I was like, I want to learn more about this. I was already recruiting at this point. I was learn more about this. And they're sitting there and they're describing it. And I was like, that's what I do every day in the recruiting world. And from there, John, it went from 5-6 recruits a month, which is good by anyone's standard.
Sure.
To 15, 18. I mean, my average, I think in 2018 was 25, 26 people a month.
So how much time did you have under your belt then as a recruiter? That was your role. Was it a couple of years, 2 years?
2 years.
Okay. And then Dan approached you. Did Dan approach you? And I know there's some talks about recruiting, but ultimately, as you looked at when you came into the role, was it to be a sales manager? Was it to be purely recruiting, or was it a hybrid from the beginning? Okay, it's day one. You've been hired. We've talked. I identified you as a recruiter, saw you could recruit. Day one, were you a recruiter, or you were a recruiter, sales manager in training? What did that look like?
I was all of it. So he said, hey, recruiter. And the goal was when we connected through somebody else, it was, hey, I need someone to come in and help me recruit. And I'll pay you on a contract basis. And then he and I spent some time together. I think 2 days I spent in the office kind of hanging out with him and him talking. And by the second one, the conversation was very different. It wasn't like, hey, tell me how you would recruit, but like, let me get to know you. And I realized the conversation was different. And then he calls me on my drive home and goes, hey, look, I know we've been talking about this thing, but what would you think about having a more permanent role in the team and doing something a little bit beyond just recruiting? And so that's when we started having that conversation about, look, we also need somebody to come and help manage and lead. And I actually think you could be that person.
So do this, and you're the most perfect person to do it, not just because you're here with me, because you're teaching and coaching now, and you were in it. What was the experience you had as you came in recruiting and then coming into unpack? I'm going to ask you about 10 questions in here. Unpack coming into, okay, I'm going to go into a new role. Like I'm recruiting and I'm going to be a sales manager. So there's a new job, right? Mm-hmm. Number two, there is a new culture. You're the outsider. Oh, you're going to get us to take action. Right?
Yeah.
And then thirdly, what did the timelines look like and the challenges in showing up in all of those? I mean, we could talk for I think that's a big one right there for hours on that one.
Yeah. The primary thing coming into the new role, it's an interesting thing because it's a brand new role. And it's funny how this happens every single time I do anything different in my life is it's new, but it's the same. Because I had built a team of recruiters. Those people that I had recruited in my previous role, they still looked up to me as a leader. I didn't just recruit them and ditch them, right? I was still somebody who had influence.
Right.
And so in doing that, I understood, it took me a while to understand it. So coming in as a new role, I said, oh man, I got to manage all these people who, by the way, if you can't tell by the timeline of my story, I didn't sell very many houses. Sure. Before I started recruiting and doing all this stuff. Right. So I remember sitting in my interview and I had looked up the team before and I'm sitting with people who had sold in the last month, actually not even joking, in the last week combined at that table had sold more houses than I probably ever even showed. Right. And so I just hit it right on the head. I looked Brian Danny right in his face. The guy sold $109 million in real estate.
Yeah, right.
I looked him right in his eye. I go, I know I've not sold anywhere near as many houses as you. And I'm not even going to pretend that I have. I'm not here to do that. I'm here to grow. I'm here to grow the team. I'm here to be responsible and help everyone stay accountable to whatever goals that we set as a team. And that's what I'm here to do. And he'll tell you the story. You've heard it before. He goes, immediately, that's when I earned his respect, that I didn't try to flex beyond what I was there for.
So I want everyone to catch what he came out of the gates with: humility, vulnerability, transparency.
Yeah. And so it's a new role. I'm recruiting. I know that game, or so I think. I thought I knew the game because what I had been recruiting to was different than running a team, right? And in addition to that, I was basically recruiting people to spend more time with me, as opposed to in the office, right? In a brokerage, it was slightly different because our culture wasn't one of like, you hang out with me now all the time.
I've heard that one. Hang out more with me.
Yeah. So like, right. Because in other words, and now I know I can phrase it, I can term it. And this is what I work with my coaching clients is understand that what I didn't understand or what I didn't value and didn't put emphasis on was building business intimacy day one. And as a matter of fact, building business intimacy day T minus 365.
Unpack that one, because that's our, we know what that means. Unpack business intimacy to its most granular level, because you and I both know that's the lid or it's the rocket ship, period.
Yep. So business intimacy and the most granular level is how well do you know what that person is going to accomplish in their personal life as the result of a killer year in real estate. That's business intimacy. So with my coaching clients, it's the exact same thing. I start with them there. I go, okay, what are you going to do this year? How's your team going to go? What are we going to build together? Fantastic. If we're able to accomplish that, what's the one thing in your personal life that happens as a result of that? And that's business intimacy. And it cuts out so much fluff, and it cuts out the herky jerky one-on-ones. You ever notice that the one-on-ones have a ton of like stop and go? If you're all about the numbers, if you're just about what's in your pipeline, how many do you have in escrow, it gets really like, stop your day. Let's stop being humans for a minute. Let's look at this statistic, and I'm going to define you and boil you all down to these numbers. And then let's go back to work. It's a really weird thing. So building business intimacy, it's an easy, the way I look at one-on-ones, when you have business intimacy, it's just one long continuous conversation. It's just at this point, we kind of have like a set aside time to go a little bit deeper on that long conversation, as opposed to that herky jerky stop and go. Now let's look at your numbers. Okay. Untime. Let's go back to work.
Right.
Yeah. So
really it's like this continual conversation.
It's one long conversation. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like, you ever sat, I know it has. You ever sit in a car with somebody that's a really good friend and you don't have to talk for, maybe you're taking a long drive. Like you and Dan were in the car yesterday when you called me. I would imagine there was at least 20 to 30 minutes, depending on how long the drive was, where you guys just didn't talk. But then you could pick up the conversation. Like Dan, I've been in the car with Dan. This has probably happened. You guys are talking. Dan goes, uh-huh. And then he's texting for 19 minutes. And then he looks up and picks up right there. When you have business intimacy, you understand that, right? There's that continuous conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a depth of understanding which removes judgment out of the relationship.
Yep, it really is.
Your first 90 days in that role. So you had that encounter with Brian, who we both love. He's a dear friend of ours. And but then you've got the rest of the group. What does indoctrination look like? If you're looking at that and now you're coming into that role, if you're sharing with everyone, if you're sharing with a team leader, okay, team leader, you got someone coming in similar to me. And I don't know, you let us know if whether it's someone from outside is different from someone inside. Either way, it's that new position. What's the most important thing for that team leader to do as they're bringing that person on the first 90 days? And what's the most important thing for that sales manager to do?
So the most important thing for the team leader to do is to help the person understand that right now is not the time to go out and take over the world. Right now is the time to sit and observe and absorb and indoctrinate themselves into what's there. But there's a caveat. And this is where this is so critical, man. You can't have them drink the Kool-Aid as though everything's perfect. You need somebody who's getting in the good, but spotting the bad. They have to have, I wouldn't say a critical eye, maybe a critical eye, but they have to buy in with a healthy degree of skepticism, knowing that I'm here for a reason, I'm here for a purpose. If everything were perfect, then I wouldn't be needed, right? And by the way, you want to know how you found the right person, as if you paint a pretty, and you might actually be, I'm talking to everybody in the audience, right? Anybody that's listening, you might actually be deterring the right candidate by presenting how perfect your culture already is. Because the person who really is going to excel at this job, they're going to go, well, if everything's perfect, what do you need me for? I need a challenge.
Right. A smart person's going to recognize that.
Yeah, Dan, that's one of the beautiful parts about Dan and Laura. They said, here's where we're doing great, and here's where we are not doing great. And do you think you could fit that gap? And I said, that's a tall order. And somebody like me, I go, and I'm ready. Let me at it. And so that is, and there's a balance there, right? For the owner. Now, the person that's ready to be in their first 90 days there is sit, observe. Now, I don't want you to get that, what I just said about don't go try to take over the world and all this stuff in your first 90 days. I don't want you to take that sales manager and go to the CEO and go, hey, see, I'm not supposed to do anything. I'm just supposed to sit around and do nothing for 90 days. That's not okay. That's not the license. What you do is you still call every single day and introduce yourself to agents and demonstrate, and you just introduce yourself and say, hey, if you ever want to make a change, give me a call. Because guess what's not going to happen? They're not going to sit there and interrogate you about every value proposition that you don't even know about. They're going to hang up on you or give you a bunch of doubts or objections. That's fine. You just need to lay the groundwork. You just need to get into the habit, make the calls. The first person I recruited, I'll be honest with you, John, it was probably a little too early because I sold them on the wrong value proposition.
Oh, recruiting them into your home team now.
Yeah.
So you're new in this role. And hey, I need to recruit because that's what I do. And so I love that. You brought them in too early. Or to the wrong thing.
And let's define that better. Into the wrong thing. The timing was right.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, because anytime is a good time to recruit someone, period.
Yeah, 100%. Like if they're ready your first day, you don't stop and say, hey, Isaac said this one thing. And I
gotta wait 90 days, man.
You get working on it right away.
Yeah.
The thing is you have to understand what you're pitching to. And so that's what I mean by it's you got to go absorb. You got to interview the agents. Why are you here? What's important about this place? What might I be missing? Right? What will attract other people? And that right there, internalizing that and getting that. But here's the other thing. When you are, as a leader, bringing a sales manager in, you have to be really clear on what your company stands for and what you hire and fire by, right? We call them core values. We call them core values because that person needs to hire based on principle, fire based on principle. And if you don't set them up with that, you've given them one alternative. They're going to hire based on personality. They're going to fire based on personality. And that's going to be a disaster. You want drama in your business? Let them hire and fire based on personality. So it's a guaranteed recipe for success if you want drama.
Really good. And for a team leader, let them yes, a team leader is there to guide them, but is there some importance? Was there, as you came in, where Dan and Laura allowed latitude in maybe where you weren't going down exactly the path, you were still new, they let you experience things, but yet dipped their toe in to let you know, hey, we're kind of the bumpers. What's that look like? How do you, from a team, because I know you see it from that standpoint too, how do you as a team leader or operations manager lead and facilitate that person's growth and allowing mistakes or not?
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. And the funny thing is, it's actually more simple than any of us could possibly imagine, which is, are they going on appointments? And are they, and by the way, that's recruiting appointments, and meeting current agent appointments.
Oh, so,
Right?
so you've got to recruit internally and externally, huh? Re-recruit?
Are you on recruiting appointments every day, internally or externally? If you're doing that, chances are all the other things are working out. And John, here's what's going to blow everyone's mind. It's probably the same thing the sales manager does with the agents. Hey, if you're going on listing appointments every single day, chances are your business is going to be just fine.
Mhm.
And I think that's where we get so lost sometimes as leaders is what are the metrics I need? You got to have the metrics. You got to measure them. We're going to do it on a weekly basis. But as long as you're hitting the things that matter in that role initially, right? We can fine tune stuff on the back end, but you got to focus on that. Now, the rails are one, the feedback you're getting from the agents is X, Y, and Z. And you go directly to the sales manager. This is what Laura and Dan did with me. Directly to me. Hey, just wanted to share with you what we've heard, what we've also observed. What do you think about that? Let's have a conversation about it. But without any specific direction, like this needs to change or that needs to change. Just giving you a feedback, right? And there were times where I'm like, I'm probably out of bounds there. Maybe I did misstep. Let me go own that. Let me go confront it. Let me go speak to the person. There's other times, and this might give you another cue on a personality style that might work. I'm not big on profiles, but you get it. There was other times where I'm like, I'm close enough to this, and I get what you're saying, and I can respect it, and I'm still going to stick with what it is that I'm doing. Because I believe it's the right thing. And will you give me the latitude? And they believed in me. They believed in me enough to do that. I'll give you the real life example.
Okay.
So before I'd stepped in, there was no sales manager for 6 months. Right. So I step in. And so things were real loose. Right. And the person before me, right, because we all know this, when the CEO becomes a sales manager, there's basically no sales manager.
Yeah.
Without high leverage. There's a lot to do there.
Sure.
And so anyways, long story short, there was some things that people did, my predecessor did, like you got to show up at this time and barking orders and doing all, like literally you have to do push-ups if you're a minute late to the office on this day. And in order to expand, I saw that probably wasn't going to be the person that fits into that probably wasn't going to be the profile that we needed to expand in the ways that we needed to expand. Nice. Especially going after some of these bigger partnerships that we were able to get. And so I said, you know what we're not going to do? That stuff. What we are going to do is make sure that I'm supporting people, whatever. And if you don't show up, I'm going to give you a phone call and we're going to have a human talk, right? I'm going to get to know you. I'm going to build business intimacy with you. And my job is to influence you and enroll you into why it is that you should be showing up there. And here's the thing, John, it's a lot harder work. It's way more work. To do that. Actually, I just posted a video.
So it's harder work and it takes more time.
Yep.
Right? Like a lot more time. It could be a quicker conversation if you do it. But in the long run, what happens?
The long run
activity and all those things by you taking that time and
yeah. And building relationships. And the other thing is this, we used to have these meetings and this might give somebody I've shared this story a number of times, but we have these quarterly planning meetings and they always start off with the same thing. What's going well, what's working and what's not working in the business. And you go around the table and it's Dan and Laura and Jen and a few other people, right? Brian and Sean and Perry and all these great people and who are now my dearest friends. But in those first 3 quarterly meetings, it was what's working. Great. They did it. What's not working? And it was just a laundry list of things that I was responsible for. Right. The recruiting, we're growing too fast. We're not recruiting the right people. We're not firing people fast enough. We're not this, we're not that. The training isn't on point. It was like a 45-minute festival of here's all the things, Isaac.
The Isaac Festival.
It was great. And by that, I'm obviously being sarcastic. It was like getting, like I said, you got to have a strong chin. And here's what it really is. It's not that people didn't like me. It's not that they're not great people. It's not that they didn't have a vision for where the business wanted to go. What I've learned over time is I was the embodiment of change. And I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're the best motivational speaker on the earth. You still have some degree of resistance to change. I know I do. And I was the embodiment of change. Like, who's making my life change today? It's that guy. Like, he's sitting right there. I could actually point a finger at a human being who's forcing discomfort and change in my otherwise perfect life. And so who else I was a perfect target. It was awesome. I was an easy target. It's a perfect target. Plus I know how to take a hit and keep on going. So like, you could do it again. I didn't flip out when you called me out on something. I said, okay, that's helpful. Thank you for the feedback. And went back and made the adjustments that I needed to. Didn't quit. Didn't stop recruiting, just made the adjustments. I took their feedback and made the adjustments. So that's what it was like in the first, giving you a timeline, the first 6 to 9 months was, I'm here to grow. I understood that I was the agent of change, and growth means change. We like to put pretty titles on. I was the head of agent growth. To be honest, I was the guy who's coming to screw up the sales team and change everything. And like, that's not a fun title, and it's too long to put on a business card. Right. That's really what I represent. And I understood that. I understood that, not just for the sales team, the operations team, because guess what? We were used to having 25 escrows at a time, sometimes 30, sometimes 35, right? And we did ebb and flow. And my job was like, oh, we should be at 60, 70, 80 escrows at any time. Right. Guess what that does to the operations team? Not fun times. No. At least that's not what they perceive, right?
No, because operations think, oh, we're supposed to get excited about more sales. That means more work for us, right?
Yep.
They speak a different language.
They do. One of the pillars of recruiting and re-recruiting is having a staff that is excited about new agents, not tolerant, excited about new agents.
Yes. I love that. Excited versus tolerant. So good. Let me ask you this. And listen, we're always evolving in relationships, but from that initial part that any new sales manager is going to feel, whether you're someone that's coming up from the sales floor or you're someone that's coming up from the outside, did you capture them finally over time where you built credibility? So it was, okay, I did this, and this, and these are the things I did. Or would you say, yeah, I did, but I recruited in people. They saw me bring people in, which there's natural resistance to that. And they saw people perform and contribute. And so that helped build credibility. So that was it. One of 3 levers. I just built those relationships, John, and hey, they weren't all perfect, but I got them. I proved myself. Or I brought people in. They saw me get people productive and said, whoa, okay, this kid's for real. And I've got new people coming in. I can call you a kid because I'm 55. Or was it a combination of those? Does that make sense?
It was a combo. And I would say it was the latter first.
Okay.
So recruiting and bringing people in, because
what it did is come to hang out and be our guy. And no, he's working.
I'm going to be there. And here's the thing. I'm a nice guy. I'm a friendly person. Maybe not nice. I'm friendly. There's some people out there who are like, that guy's not a nice guy. I'm a friendly person and I'm consistent. And here's one thing and here's just like an aside, but it's true. I get this compliment. I've got this compliment my entire adult life, even from when I was in high school. I remember a teacher called me out on it. I don't think you'll ever catch me in a bad mood or having a bad attitude. I'm in a bad mood all the time, but a bad attitude.
You're steady though. Yeah. Over the years I've known you, you're steady. Stuff can be going on, but you're steady.
All hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
All hell breaks loose.
It's called life, right?
Yeah. All hell breaks loose all the time. So, but here's the thing. So I show up that way in their lives and in my interactions with them, but it was ultimately proving competence in my role. And then when people start realizing that more and more, the people that I'm bringing in I'm taking the feedback that I'm getting, because I did make some hires that were not very great as far as.
No, you mean you can't predict who's going to be productive?
Yeah, exactly. And even poor cultural fits, right? And things like that. And so I got the feedback. I would take it, I would apply it, I would adjust my strategy. And lo and behold, I'm bringing in people that people are really liking. They're extremely productive. They are happy to be there. They're contributing in a major way. And so over time, it was, hey, this person's really competent. Now, the other thing was this. There was also an understanding over time of the role of recruiting is a sales role, right? It's a sales role, and the role of managing is a leadership role. And so they got to see me do both at a really high level. And then they started seeing that our team is growing and outproducing and surpassing other companies that, without the recruiting and without the management and the strategy of the sales team, we wouldn't have been able to catch up and blow them out of the water. I mean, there's a team, is a really good friend of ours who will remain nameless, but we were like neck and neck for a while in volume. And in 2021, it was like a $200 million difference. And I'm not saying that's because of me. What I'm saying is they saw like, okay, what we're doing, what this group is doing, and in part because of the recruiting and sales management, what we're doing is working. And I've been seeing that guy consistently over time in his attitude, in his approach, in his drive, in his ability to perform, in his interaction interpersonally with me. And over time, what ends up happening is people don't start asking, but to this day, the top salespeople never come up and ask me real estate questions, but they ask me life questions and leadership questions. Hey, I just hired an assistant. How can I be better at managing my assistant? Hey, I want to do this now. I want to grow my.
How about your coaching calls? I mean, you're coaching like some top 10 teams in the United States.
Yep.
And you're coaching for them. And I don't know, maybe there's, top 10s per person productivity of one's 30 plus.
Yep.
And we're talking about 700 plus transactions. In working with them, what percentage of it is strategy, tactical stuff, and what percentage of the dialogue is human beings?
I'd say 70-30. The strategy, tactical stuff, that's actually really easy because it's just plugging in the gaps, because most of them are extremely smart people.
Sure.
And so they're like, I know there's this thing. And I'm like, oh yeah, just use this tool and do that. And here's a copy of what I did.
Thanks. Done.
Yeah, that's done. And so like, what do you want to talk about for the next 17 minutes?
But well, I've got this person over here, or that just happened. And it all involves a human being, right? Yeah. How did you?
I'll spend on a 20-minute phone call. We'll talk 3 minutes of tactical and 17 minutes like with about one ISA. But the important part is, and these people are smart enough, right? My clients are smart enough and dedicated enough to understand that if I can unlock that thing, if I can unlock my relationship with this lead ISA, or my relationships with my ops manager, or help them or empower them to do this thing, that unlocks so much more. They understand the domino effect, right? They're like, if I can get that one. So like, great, cool. Send me a copy of that thing, that widget, whatever it is that I can be tactical with. But how do I approach this person about that? I'm having a hard time with it.
What percentage, Isaac? I've got 3 or 4 people I'm growing a team, or I've got 10, 15 people growing a team, but I'm not at this trajectory that I'm hearing about. What percentage of people do you think, just the general public, not people that have been in our rooms that you coach, really believe that that's the kicker to massive growth, that really believe it's how you facilitate? What percentage do you think really believe that that's it? Or versus,
it's less than 5% believe it. Less than 5% believe it. And even the like 4.2% that believe it, they have no idea where to start.
It is the number one key though to your circle. This, you look at the peers in our circle that we're in, right?
Yep.
It's the number one thing, man.
That's all that matters. You can, dude, you can screw up so much in your business and nail that and be way better. I see it. I'm with my clients all the time. And I'm not saying they're screw ups. What I am saying is there's so many improvements they can make on the strategy and the tactic and the this and the system and the CRM and whatever. Sure. Let's work on that. I'm happy to do that. But those that are nailing the personal relationship side of it, the business intimacy side of it, they're seeing tremendous results.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't think there's any more asymmetric like skill set or investment you can make to get an unfair advantage in your business than understanding the human behavior part of it and the human nature side of it. Now, the critical part is, can you live in that discomfort long enough to actually function that way, to come at it from a place of, this is now my nature. This is the way I function. That's an uncomfortable place to be. Really uncomfortable.
That's right.
And that's what I work a lot with my clients.
Okay.
Sitting in that discomfort.
Mm-hmm. So let's stay here, because the next question goes into, it's not logic, it's an emotional thing, but there's some logic to it. So you had to come in, you're the new guy, build new relationships, right? And you didn't sell $1 bajillion worth of real estate. We all know, though, what I love is 211 million to 612 million, 9 to 60 agents. And the good news is, as a leader, everything good that happened, it's your fault. Everything bad that happened, it's your fault. And so we've got a lot of good here in this. When you look at, and it was a great organization, as we both know, before you came in, still there's this human nature of lack. Now you're bringing people in. Did you get any of the, first of all, you're different, and this is our place. But then the second thing is, Dan, Laura, it doesn't feel the same. Dan, Laura, or even to you, Isaac, I'm not going to get as many leads as you went on this growth trajectory, because I know this one can happen in organizations. Did you experience some of that? And if you did, how did you handle it? Because obviously you got through it the other side really well.
Yeah, I absolutely did. Now, the benefit that I have, and this is again something that I work with with my clients, is the benefit I had was the understanding of the Dan and the Laura, that the investment in the marketing, and man, like, talk about a marketing genius, right?
So the investment in the consumer to consumer marketing that the Beer Home team is doing.
Yep. What I knew was that Dan wasn't going to allow me to beat his ability and the marketing team's ability to generate business. It wasn't going to happen. And so his commitment of, you bring in as many people, and like, I need you to force me into investing more. And understanding that he had that mindset was huge. Now, here's a critical thing. All too often, I see these, you say, get out of your comfort zone, and you see these like pictures of like somebody skydiving or jumping off a cliff by themselves, right? And so what I don't want you to hear is, Dan is this unique visionary who only he could have the guts to say, hey, come in and grow, and my marketing team's going to outpace you. It's different. Dan is part of a network, right? With you and a lot of the other people that are in our circle. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know this until September of 2019, when I went to go hang out with you at the first Vegas event I ever went to, first Chet Black event I ever went to.
Red Rock?
I'm like, oh, yeah, Red Rock. When we went and hiked Zion and all that.
Yeah. Okay.
By the way, if I would have ever watched a video about Angels Landing before we did that hike, I would have never done that.
Wouldn't have done.
No. Ridiculous. Anyways, when I went there and I saw that, I go, oh, this is why. This is why he has the confidence to go and say something like, hey, man, I need you to double, triple, quadruple, quintuple, maybe even 10X the team. And you let me worry about lead flow. I'll go out and get it. I'll do my best to keep pace with you. Let's see who wins. Interesting.
Really, really good.
And so, but that doesn't take away from the in the moment feeling of lack from the agent. So in the back of my head, I knew that, but what you can't go around and do is burn all of your social equity by saying, don't worry, it's coming, it'll happen, because it's never going to come at the same rate that you need it to come. There will actually be times where when you bring on more people, there won't be enough open houses to run this weekend because all the new people took them. Right. So there actually is that place. So there's a balance of sitting there and understanding where that person's coming from and helping them understand that where our commitment is. See, people will be okay with the mistakes that you make and the missteps that you make in life, as long as they are convinced of where your commitment lies. And so I was convinced, because I knew Dan and the conversations we had about he's always going to aim to outpace, and I know him to be a winner, right? I was convinced in my heart of hearts, within everything that I knew is true, that Dan actually was going to live up to that. And so what I was able to do is say, hey, look, I get it. And this is what it is right now. And we are completely committed to this. And our commitment and our obsession is waking up every single day and saying, how can we generate more opportunity for the people in the business? And so it's a common conversation, but it's interesting because it's the truth of teams. There are two different types of teams out there. There's probably all kinds of different models. It's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is there's two different types of teams. There's a team that grew, and the team leader every single day wakes up and says, what do I have to do today to sell more real estate? And that's an awesome team, by the way. That team leader sells a lot of real estate.
Right.
And the people in that team, I don't know. They probably sell a lot of real estate because they can learn from the habits of that team leader. Now there's what I call the evolved team, the high leverage team. And that leadership group wakes up every day and says, they stop asking, what do I have to do today to sell more real estate? And they start asking, what do I have to do today to create more opportunity for the people in my business? And if that, and because I knew that was our obsession, our collective obsession as the leadership, not our collective goal, not our collective theory, but our collective obsession, meaning that's what we actually practice every single day. That's what we're committed to doing. If I knew that and I can convey that to the agents in a way that made sense, because keep in mind, I'm a salesperson.
Sure.
John, you and I are having a conversation. You feel this way. Here's my job, is to sell you, not in any bad way, in the best possible way, because I believe sales is nothing more than a transfer of enthusiasm. It's for me to transfer that to you so that you walk away and going, I'm not extremely excited about what happened this last week. And maybe the next couple of weeks might not be ideal, but here's what I can do. I can look at that person who I've built trust with over time and understand that their commitment and their obsession is totally to get things back where I have an abundance. And what's interesting is we've probably never been in a spot where we were in that place for more than 2 to 3 weeks, maybe a month at the most, where it was like, oh, lead flow got a little wonky. And it's like, well, yeah, because we brought in so many people, but oh, okay, there it goes. Right. Because the marketing team's on point in those things.
Sure. And we're going to do this a few times. I want to honor your time today. As we continue on. And by the way, I'm sure you've all figured out here, Isaac is a great coach. He's coaching a group. How many? You got 20 people from across?
There's 16 in the
16 intimate group. Yeah. So he's got 60 on a 1-year program. Now that's not open right now. But he has one-on-one coaching. And if you're interested in coaching with Isaac, you can go to isaac.agentacademycoaching.com. And by completing that questionnaire, he can take a look at it and schedule a discovery call with you. And so, but with that said, I want to leave people with this question. And we've seen, that's the neat thing. I mean, we've got friends that have an ISA department's totally different than yours. Our pal up in Sacramento, it's neat. And then, yeah, I mean, everyone, his is called carpet bombing.
Yeah.
Right.
I love it.
But look, this one here, if you're opening a real estate office, you've got the financial resource, because, as you're building, you've got to look at, maybe we've got a few different jobs. You've got all the financial resource and you've got to hire, whether you're a brokerage, because you can do work with brokerages, teams, you're opening up you're not opening up, you're at this next stage of, okay, I need to hire a recruiter and I need a sales manager. Do you personally, the best run organization for you personally, you're the CEO, do you need a recruiter and a sales manager? Do you feel that coming out of the gates, I want both a sales manager and a recruiter? Yeah, maybe that sales manager, or maybe even that sales manager is going to evolve to purely that role, but they will never have their fingers out of of the recruiting, or no, that sales manager stands alone? About 7 different ways to look at it there, but how would you look at those 2 roles? It's your business, your company. How are you going to do it?
The way I would do it is exactly the way that I've done it in the past, is having a sales manager that recruits. And now it depends. I have some people who have them separate.
Yeah.
The challenge is, and I'm not saying it's impossible. As a matter of fact, it's very possible.
Sure.
Here's all that matters. I actually don't think that matters so much as there's a good feedback loop between the two.
Okay.
And understanding the needs of the culture and where it needs to be shifted and where we need to recruit to the gaps in the culture. Okay. And culture, by the way, doesn't mean how like you guys behave and like what is said at the potluck. Culture is whether we produce or not. Right? A culture of productivity is one where we support one another in our commitment to the core values and our commitment to productivity. And so that's where it is. But my personal belief is, and I think you asked the question the way you asked it because you knew the way I was going to answer it, is this: that every single person in the entire organization always has their hands in recruiting.
I don't know you that well enough, Isaac, to even go there.
Yeah. So everybody has their hands in recruiting. The ops manager has her hands in recruiting. Every single person.
Oh, Laura's about it. Yep.
If you hear, and this is, and I might, by the way, somebody might get really mad at me right now, but you know me, that the first time I was on stage in Nashville, I said, "Hey, is it okay if I piss everybody off?" Right. So is it okay, John, on your podcast, can I piss some people off?
Absolutely, please. It wouldn't be, I mean, it's me. Come on, of course.
Okay, if you have a sales manager who's like, "Hey, I just want to manage sales and I don't want any part of recruiting. I want to move away from it," you're in the danger zone. You're in the danger zone. I'm not telling you it's the wrong person. I'm not telling you to fire them. What I am telling you is you need to get in with that person and understand why they're thinking that way and help them understand that the growth of everything they want from their sales team and moving forward, you cannot outsource that. That's the problem with separating the two, in my opinion, is that you're outsourcing growth, but you have to live with the people that are now in the program, right? So I have to manage people, but I want someone else to find the people that I'm going to manage. I at least need to be involved. I at least need to say, here's what we need. I need to be able to understand the needs of the business from an intimate level, right? There might be a time where you're like, "Hey, you got to bring in some fresh blood because of this." And it's other times where you got to bring in some experienced people because of that. Mm-hmm. And the sales manager is going to know that. The recruiter might not know that because they're not doing that unless they do both roles, right? But there has to be some degree of understanding and communication, because that barrier, there can't be a barrier between the two.
Yeah. Really.
Otherwise, you're working on lag, and you can't have lag in today's industry. You got to be agile. You got to be able to understand it. When you realize, I'll give you a real story about it, and then I want to honor your time too. Your real story. We realized our margin was being a little compressed. So we did some real quick research. Laura did some real quick research. Well, it turns out there's X% of company deals is shrinking, not by any hysterical amount, but it was shrinking. And so we said, well, let's take a look at it. We spent so long recruiting people that had their own spheres. And also, so many of our agents are we're a victim of our own success. So many of our agents have been so successful and so productive lately, they have these big past client databases. And so what's easier, people that you know, or working company new generated leads from the ISA? It's human behavior to go and work those other ones. I can't blame them. What I'm not going to do is go say, "Brian Danny, stop talking to all your past clients and go
selling houses. Go sell those.
Selling houses. Go sell somebody that you never met before instead of getting referrals because you did such a great job 6 years ago." Can't do that. What you got to do, you got to go find people who fit the role of you are excited, hungry, and motivated to close company generated business. Awesome. And so I was able to make that pivot in the moment. And that was November. We realized that January, I had 4 agents hungry, ready to rock, jumped on the leads. They're crushing it right now. Actually, I just posted something yesterday from one of them giving me this big thank you text. That was from one of the ones that started in January. She said 3 weeks in, it's already amazing, blah, blah, blah. But that was because I understood the needs of the business at a very intimate level. And I understood that on the sales, as a sales manager and as a recruiter. And so there has to be a constant communication. I don't think you die if they're 2 separate people. I think you die if they're 2 separate entities.
Well, that just helps us end on an even higher note. Recruiting right now can solve a problem right now. And that's what you did. You had a discovery, period. Isacc.agentacademycoaching.com. We'll probably do this a few times, Isaac. Thank you, brother.
Thank
Appreciate you. And keep doing the good work. Proud of you.
Thank you, John. Appreciate
All
it.
right. Thanks, bud.